Adobe worked closely with technology partners like Intel, NVIDIA, and HP to help you get the most out of Production Premium CS6. CS6 is optimized to get the most out of the Intel Xeon ES1600 and 2600 family of processors, so you can edit and composite faster. It's not just about the speed or the number of cores, but the way the new Intel Xeon processor moves the data around the processor. New technologies like the Intel Direct I/O and the Intel Integrated I/O can help you unlock your creativity. Let's take a look. To help show how the CPUs actually benefit us in tapeless workflow, let's go ahead and take a look at some different types of formats here. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Task Manager and take a look how different formats actually affect the CPU. So you'll notice as I'm scrubbing these, I'm anywhere from 10% to 14% of the CPU. Not really that much, and remember, GPU really doesn't kick in until I add effects. Let's take a look at some other formats to see how they affect the CPU. Here I've got some Canon 5D Mark III footage, and you'll notice that as I scrub these, the CPUs are working about twice as hard as they were working before when I was looking at P2. So the one thing you want to understand is that different codecs have different demands on the CPU. Let's take a look at another timeline that I've got up where I have 4 clips on the timeline and see what it's like to work with these new Intel processors. So I've got my 4 clips on the timeline sitting in a pip configuration. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up that Task Manager again so we can watch what's going on. Let's hit play on the timeline and keep your eye on the CPU usage and the threads. You can see it evenly threads across all 32 cores. These new Intel Xeon ES processors are absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and do an export and see how these processors help us out. So let's go ahead and export it as an H.264 file, maybe for an iPad. And let's go ahead and bring up our Task Manager so we can keep an eye on the CPU usage and hit export. And the first thing you'll notice is you have a nice even threading across all 32 threads. This is one of the things you're looking for in your system to make sure that all 32 threads are kicking in. And this works great. Now keep in mind, you've got anywhere from 30 to 40% additional CPU usage. You can go ahead and start doing other tasks at the same time. Another great way to look at this is what happens if I'm running Premiere Pro and you saw that I was exporting, or maybe I'm just playing back a long timeline. How about if I want to jump into another application, say After Effects, and start working in After Effects while I'm still working in Premiere Pro? Let's check it out and see how that works. So I've got Premiere Pro here, and let's go ahead and bring up After Effects. And I've got a project already loaded. Now I can actually start to scrub on the timeline and start working on changing parameters and doing all the typical things I might do in After Effects. If I go ahead and hit play, you'll actually notice that both timelines are playing at the same time. Even on my SDI monitor here, I've got everything working at exactly the way that I would expect it to work, except I'm working in 2 applications at the same time. So with CS6 and these new Intel processors, it's actually pretty incredible to be working this way. Remember that it's important to have a well-balanced system. By taking a Quadro card like this inexpensive Quadro 2000 board and matching it with a Tesla 2750 board, you'll get a super fast Maximus configuration. This configuration will accelerate all of your Cuda effects, like our newly redesigned 3-way color corrector and many other effects. Let's take a quick look. Here you can see on my timeline I've got 12 video layers. Let's go ahead and hit play, and you'll notice that I am at full playback. You'll notice it does a fairly decent job of trying to keep up, but quickly starts to fall apart. I'm actually at full video quality here. My 3D logo is actually trying to play back and not doing a particularly great job. Now let's see what happens when I turn my GPU on. So I'll go ahead and take it from software only mode to GPU acceleration with Cuda. You'll immediately see that my red line turns yellow, telling me that the GPUs are kicked in, and I go ahead and hit play. You'll start to see it actually does a fairly decent job. Even my logo spinning in here is actually playing back nicely. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit stop, rewind this, hit Control tilde to bring that up into cinema mode, and hit play again so you can get a closer look. It's actually doing a very, very good job. So my 3D logo looks nice and smooth. Unbelievable performance. There is a lot going on this screen, and it's actually incredible what we're looking at. So what happens if I'm on a laptop, say a MacBook Pro, and I'm trying to increase my performance? What types of things can I do? There's actually a lot of things you can do. Let's jump over to the Mac and take a look. One of the first things you'll notice on my Mac is I've actually got a couple of Intel solid-state drives. These things are pretty incredible and amazingly fast. Let me go ahead and show you just how fast these things are. Pretty incredible speed. So it's got great write speeds and great read speeds. Just look at that performance, 511 megabytes per second. What about working with larger projects or projects that you might want to back up? You can always take advantage of Thunderbolt and add a promise drive like this Pegasus R4 unit. Let's take a look at its performance. I'll go ahead and hit start again and just look at these write speeds. This performance is really incredible. Now, what else can I do to add more performance to this laptop? Say I want to go ahead and use a card that I already own, like this Blackmagic DeckLink card. And again, I'm trying to get this card inside of this laptop. Using Intel's Thunderbolt technology, I can always add an Echo Series device from Sonnet. And you'll notice that this particular unit's got 2 slots in the back. I can go ahead and add a Blackmagic DeckLink card and maybe a Red Rocket card. On this system, you'll also notice I've got a Matrox MX02 LE, and when I go over to my preferences, playback, you'll see that I've got it monitoring right here on SDI playback, which is actually going to give me great performance out of this laptop. So I've really got an incredible configuration going on here. One of the last things I want to talk about is what you can do to optimize, say, your laptop's internal drive when you're working with Premiere Pro. What types of things can I do to get better performance? Well, you want to start by looking in your preferences. So let's go to Premiere Pro Preferences, and let's go down to the Media. And under where it says Cache Files, I want to go ahead and browse to my fastest drive. And in this case, I can either go ahead and go to my Promise RAID, or if I'm just on a laptop, I'm going to go ahead and go to my Intel 520 SSD, and I'm going to go ahead and click New Folder. I'm going to go ahead and call this Premiere Cache, and choose that folder. And I can go ahead and also put my database in the same folder. This is going to ensure that my projects open really, really fast, and I've got an easy way to manage all of my cached files. So when I click OK, one of the things I want to point out is when I go over to my Intel drive, I've got my Premiere Cache folder right here, and I can monitor its performance. So as you can see, by adding any of these technologies that we've talked about today, like these Intel solid-state drives, Intel Thunderbolt, NVIDIA Tesla and Quadro cards, and these new Intel Xeon processors, it really allows you to get the most out of your CS6 system and make sure it's running at top performance.